Ear splitting before match point. Londell. Chin. Turn back and Purdue wins.
Setting up Peterson again. Block! Boilermakers do it! They survived the upset with a 3-set run to win in 5 and advance to the Sweet 16 for the 3rd consecutive year.
The block by Purdue, and the Boilermakers are moving on!
The Dig City Podcast is presented by Franciscan Health Sports Medicine, inspiring health. Franciscan is the official medical services provider of Purdue Athletics. Welcome back to the Dig City Podcast. Corey Palm alongside head coach Dave Shondell. Coach, 1-1 last week, a 5-set thriller in Bloomington in an environment and a match that you knew was probably going to be exactly what it turned out to be, a barn burner between two rivals. Came out ahead against the Hoosiers, and then falling at home Sunday afternoon to a very talented and very hot Maryland team right now. They've won 9 straight sets. I don't think a lot of people understand that about this Maryland squad, but just thoughts on the week.
Well, I knew, Corey, when we came back to beat Indiana, that was a really big win.
Yeah.
That could have gone the other way. And when we got on that bus and we're driving home, I just turned around and told our team, I said, guys, that was a great win. That win is going to mean a lot, for this program moving forward, not even knowing that we would lose 2 days later to Maryland. But anytime you go on the road in this league and you can win, they're big wins, significant wins. And I think we've gone on the road 3 times and we've won all 3 at Illinois, at Iowa, and now in Indiana. But with just 3-2 at home, with losses to Wisconsin, who's really good, and then Maryland, which the general public doesn't recognize that they have a lot of their players back from last year. They're the best blocking team in the country. I'm a little surprised they dropped a couple of the matches early in the Big Ten season that they did after watching them play against us. But I thought we were a little bit flat, but I think that Maryland played with a lot more purpose than we did on that particular night, or that afternoon. And that means a lot, is how much passion and desire and toughness are you playing with, and they beat us on that one. Even in the 3rd set, we had about a 21-16 lead, and it looks like, okay, we're going to at least push this into a 4th set and maybe build some momentum and make things real interesting, and before you know it, we're walking out the door with a 3-0 defeat to Maryland. But kudos to them. I really like Adam Hughes. He's one of my favorite coaches in the Big Ten. He does things the right way. He's recruited really well. He trains well, and I expect Maryland to win plenty of matches down the stretch of this Big Ten season.
Boilermakers stand at 15-3 overall, 6-2 in the Big Ten, good for 4th place as the standings are right now. We'll talk about the week ahead. It's something you, before we went on air, talked about maybe the most challenging week of the season. We'll get to that in a bit, but before we do that, we're just past halfway in the season. We're approaching halfway in the Big Ten season. I know now's usually the time where you like to figure that you've figured some things out about the team, hopefully, and maybe can set your sights on goals for the end of the year.
Hopefully. We've figured a few things out. But I think we have. I think that this team, not young as far as where they are in their college career, but young in how much time they spent on the floor for Purdue volleyball, competing in the Big Ten or at any other level. I think that we just got off to a really good start. And thank goodness that we did, because that's going to give us a lot of stock, a lot of wins that will help us in what now I think we've determined as our goal is, number one, let's just find a way to get in the NCAA tournament. History indicates that when Purdue makes the NCAA tournament, they're a very dangerous team, and they can go deep into the tournament. So let's number one, let's not focus on where we want to be ranked, which has nothing to do with much of anything in the world of college volleyball, or where we're going to necessarily finish in the Big Ten, because it's just a really tough league to win, and especially if you have a young, inexperienced team in Big Ten competition like we do. But I think what happened a little bit, Corey, this is just my take, and I could be dead wrong on this, but we got a lot of hype early, whether it was being ranked 5th in the country. When I think everybody on our team knew we weren't the 5th best team in the country, but the hype was there, the pressure started to mount that, okay, we've got to start beating everybody now because we're ranked 5th in the country. Or all the awards that we were getting through the Big Ten conference, I think that added a little bit of weight on the shoulders of some of our players. And so I felt like the loss to Maryland gave us an opportunity to say, hey, let's relax a little bit here. Okay, let's not feel like every time we step on the floor we have to win every match. I mean, you want to win every match, and you've got a chance in this league to win every match, but you've also got a chance to lose every match in this league. That's just the way the conference is this year. I talked to the folks on the Big Ten Network just, I don't know if it was yesterday, 2 days ago. It's kind of a blur. But they asked, have you ever seen the Big Ten Conference when there's been so much parity where anybody can beat anybody? And the question is, no, I've not seen it this way. And it's a credit to the coaches of some of these programs that have not been as good. Credit to the new coaches that have come in recently that have, jump-started programs and gone out and done a great job of bringing in transfers and foreign players and everything else to try to, load their roster up. And so now there's just not that much difference in talent. I feel like there's 2 or 3 teams that are above the rest. And there might be 1 or 2 that are a little bit below. And then you've got this mob in the middle of about 9 teams or so that they're going to beat each other up. That's just the way that it is. And fortunately, with that situation, we've done okay so far, and we should feel good about that. But right now, it's continually about taking one match at a time and just being prepared. But the league is going to be really, really tough. It's an absolute meat grinder, and you can't let one loss turn into 2 losses or 3 losses because you lose confidence or you start getting upset and frustrated. That's just this league, and it's been this league for as long as I have been in it. So it's no different this year, except I do think there's a lot of parity between teams 3 and 4 all the way down through 12 or 13.
Nebraska sits atop the Big Ten at 8-0. Wisconsin and Ohio State 7-1, and then the Boilermakers right there 6-2. Minnesota 5-3. You'll see 2 of those teams this week, and like I said, we'll preview that in a bit. Now that we sort of know what the Big Ten looks like, what's the rest of the country? Is it sort of shaped up outside the Midwest how you imagine it would, or what is sort of the stories right now?
I think more than ever it's a bit of a mashed potatoes situation, to be honest with you. That's the reason that when we lost to Maryland, we just dropped from 9 to 12 in the poll. I mean, of course, I'm talking about how you feel like the skies fall when you get beat. I'm thinking, man, we're going to really bottom out. We dropped just 3 spots, losing to an unranked team because so many other teams are getting beat by teams in their league. Because there's just this, it's just not a Big Ten thing. It's just it comes down to, Corey, there are so many women playing volleyball right now. And that's the difference. Yeah. Great athletes, more great athletes playing our sport than ever before. And so because of that, and there's only 12 scholarships per school, and then with COVID, a lot of players are staying. So you've got more good players that are feeding into more teams that are being better coached than what they probably were before. I think that just makes sense that there's volleyball has risen, the stock has risen in the sport. The coaches are being paid a little bit better than what they have, so they're enviable jobs, and now people are working harder to keep those jobs, and so they're doing a really good job. So it's just, look at the Pac-12, you look at the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and then even the Big East, where you've got Marquette and Creighton, who are 2 really good teams, and the Big West Conference. It's got 3 teams that have been in the top 25 all season long. But I just think that I think Texas has got more physical talent than anybody else, and they've got experience, and they're hungry because they haven't had the success over the past few years that they felt like they should have. And then you have Louisville, who I don't think is quite as physical with size and stature and those kinds of things as what Texas is, but they're a proven commodity after being one of the best teams in the country a year ago, the number 1 seed going into the NCAA tournament, and they've lost 1 match and upset to, I think it was San Diego that may have bit them on the home floor. But they've lost a couple sets, to teams that were a little surprising in their league. But again, it just shows you that their league is solid as well. So I don't think you can tell much, except Texas is the lead dog right now, and I think everybody is kind of chasing them. And I think Louisville's second, and then you get into Nebraska, Wisconsin. I know San Diego is up there because they had a really good non-conference deal, but I just don't know how at the end of the season, once these teams really get into a groove from some of these bigger conferences, if San Diego is going to be able to continue to hold their own or not. They may be able to. They've got some skilled players. That's their strength, is skilled players, not necessarily big physical kind of players. When you look at Wisconsin or Nebraska or Minnesota or Penn State, some of those kind of teams. But at the end of the day, San Diego is going to probably be somebody you're going to have to look at as well. The surprising thing is the Pac-12 has not risen very high in the rankings because their non-conference success was not great, and then they're kind of beating each other up. USC leads that league right now, and I gave them a number 24 vote in the poll this past week. They did not make the top 25, but
they're just outside.
They're the group that's really starting to play well. They had some great transfers, and coached, I think he's in his second or third year right now, but he's really making some noise out there and doing some good recruiting. So they're the team that's going to really do well. But but you keep in mind, Stanford is in the top 10.
Yep.
Washington, Oregon are up there. I know that Washington State has been playing pretty well also, but that league is just not quite as good right now as it has been traditionally.
You mentioned something there at the very beginning, and we haven't talked about it. We talked about it a lot last year because it affected us. We haven't talked about it as much this year because the COVID effect, the COVID carryover, it doesn't really. Your squad is not dramatically affected by it, but I know that there are some. Hannah Clayton's got an extra year. Grace has an extra year because of that. But that's going on still around the country.
And still possible for players for 2 more years.
And it's going to continue to, like
you're
said,
seeing
sort of
less.
widen the pool.
Yeah, but you're seeing less. You're seeing less players staying because the group that was affected the most was that Caitlin Newton, Jenna Otek class where their senior year was no crowds.
Right.
And it was kind of just a dismal opportunity to really celebrate a senior year, and so it made sense for them to stay. But now you still have, maybe half as many that might be staying. I think a lot of them are moving on to do. They had their senior year and so forth, and unless they just absolutely love playing college volleyball and they want to do it again, or there's something in their goals or objectives they want to hang around to try to accomplish, then they will stay. And I think that's great. I don't have anything against that. We just didn't have anybody on our squad last year that fit that bill. And they're all out doing their own thing right now, okay, and doing very well, by the way, if you look at all the players that graduated from Purdue last year. So, but yeah, that's going to be a factor for a while, and it does affect. And if you're looking at these kids that are being recruited, they're the ones that are really feeling that heat because they're kids that may have played in the Power 5 conference aren't getting into the Power 5 because there's just not as many opportunities.
Right.
So they're having to play at the next level, which is making that level a little bit better. So that was kind of what my point was.
Yeah, totally. And that's why that's maybe part of the reason you've got Marquette and Rice and Pepperdine, Western Kentucky, San Diego, all these
Although
schools.
those schools have kind of been knocking on that door before too, but I think it's then the next level, I think, is where I think is being impacted a little bit. But that would take a little bit more scientific research than what we have time for today.
We'll leave that to some other time. We're going to step aside real quick and be back to preview the week. The Dig City Podcast is presented by Franciscan Health Sports Medicine, inspiring health. Franciscan is the official medical services provider of Purdue Athletics. Now back to the show. Nebraska tonight on the home boards. They're one of the best teams in the country. I would say certainly a Final Four caliber squad. What is the most important thing for your squad going into tonight?
Just to play well. I mean, we felt like last weekend we were a bit of a shell of ourselves. We weren't really playing the way that we had been playing most of the season. And again, I credit some outside influences of pressure on that, and I'd like to eliminate that the best we can, but that's going to be up to our players. I mean, I certainly have a role in trying to help with that, and just go out and compete and understand we got a game plan, but that means you have to make adjustments during the course of matches and see things on your own and make reactions to what's going on in the match. But this is a really good team. It's not a whole lot different than when Minnesota came in, 4 or 5 weeks ago, first week of the Big Ten season, I think it was.
Yep.
And we played particularly well in that match and rose to the occasion and played with fire and purpose. So that's what I want to see from this team. The wins and losses, as you know, will take care of themselves. All you can do is play the best volleyball you can play. And if this team does play the best volleyball we can play during the course of the season, we're going to have a fantastic season. We're going to have something we can all be proud of. But we can't be tight. We can't be worried about things. We can't. We got to be great teammates and play with great cohesion and just great confidence as well.
Do have a pretty good history against the Cornhuskers here in town.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking. Considering that they are routinely,
Yeah.
a top 5 club,
Yeah.
and John Cook's one of the best coaches,
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah, no, John Cook's a great coach.
Yeah.
And I think that, whenever, you're the Yankees of college volleyball, people always want to try to find something wrong with people, and they're critical. And John Cook just has done a great job for a long, long time. And everybody says, well, it's easy to recruit to Nebraska. Well, why is it easy to recruit to Nebraska? Because between Terry Pettit, who built the program, and John Cook, who has taken it to another level, they've just done a masterful job in a state that at one point in time was difficult to recruit players to. They basically were getting all their players right out of the state or that part of the country. Now, John can go anywhere he wants to and find players that want to play in front of 8,200 people on every night and play in a great venue and a lot of those things. But John Cook is right now the best in the business, in my opinion. He's the best coach that is out there. I would have said Russ Rose, and John Cook for a while, but Russ is retired. And but that's life in the Big Ten.
Uh-huh.
You're going at it. With the best. Of course, the news that broke just the other day about Hugh McCutcheon was quite honestly a huge surprise to me, but yet not that surprising because, number one, he's always going to have other options, and this job is not easy.
Yeah.
This coaching college athletics, it looks easy. Everybody I'm sure would like to try it, but it's got a lot of different stresses involved in it, and I wish Hugh the very, very best. He's been great for our league. He's a true gentleman and somebody that I have incredible respect for. And he's always been hard to beat. And but he did a great job, and I wish him the very, very best. I had a chance to coach his wife in it was an All-American match out in Northern California, in Santa Cruz, California. And Liz is her name, and she was a 6'4" middle blocker, just a great, great player and a wonderful person. And now they've got 2 children, and they're doing well. So their life is going to be good. But my guess is that he's got something else that might be better suited for him right now in the life of his family.
Well, you'll get a chance to see him Saturday.
Yeah,
night
we will.
When you
We
head
will.
out there, and probably kind of from a timing perspective, maybe glad to be going to Minnesota to be able to see Hugh.
Well, yeah,
in
it's
person
also
this week.
bad timing because we found a way to beat those guys about
right.
4 or 5 weeks ago, and they're not going to be happy about that. And that'll be great motivation for them, but we've got to find ways to be motivated ourselves and to go up there and win there. We won there last year, which was the first time I think that we have won at Minnesota in our career. Keep in mind you don't play there every year,
Right.
But it had been a tough out for us to go up there and find a way to win in Minneapolis, and so it was so nice to do that with our group last year. That was the weekend we beat Wisconsin on a Friday and beat those guys on a Saturday, so that was a pretty nice weekend, one of the best ever road weekends in the history of our volleyball program. But this weekend, as we talked about, it's going to really test the mettle of our team and how tough we are and how well we compete. And again, this isn't a cop-out, Corey. I don't care about the wins and losses, okay? What I need to see is a team that is playing together, is competitive as all get out, and is finding a way to get better every day, whether it's in practice or in matches.
what specifically, getting into the nuts and bolts without giving away, state secrets here, what do you need to do better? What do they need to perform better at?
Well, I think that last weekend one of the things was that, one of the primary skills of the game that is really a touch skill is setting. And last weekend, I think because of Indiana being that rivalry match, which is going to, be a little bit more of a stressful match, we had two setters that had never set a ball in that rivalry before. Yeah. And I just don't think that they played at the level that I'd seen them in practice for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We kept, our staff will talk about how well they're doing, how much they're improving, and then they kind of took this a step back. And then we did a little bit better the next night against Maryland. We kind of loosened up a little bit as the match went on, and that wasn't a problem. But I think, the setting situation will improve, and that's something I think makes everything go. Mm-hmm. Hitters having that kind of confidence and knowing where that ball is going to be, so they can come in and be swinging from the hip and getting after the ball. Blocking against these two teams will be huge. The defensive side of the ball. These are two of the best offensive teams, potential offensive teams in the country with size and power and quality experience setting. One's got Shaftmaster, who's been starting for 3 years at Minnesota. The other has Hames, that's in her 5th year, and then another player. They run a 6-2 offense. So both teams are bringing a lot of powerful attackers at you, and so your block is going to have to be sharp, and your backcourt people have got to be relentless in making plays defensively.
8 o'clock tonight versus Nebraska tonight, being Wednesday, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. 8 o'clock versus Nebraska on the Big Ten Network. Saturday up at Minnesota, 9 o'clock start, 9 Eastern, also live on the Big Ten Network. So good national exposure, good chance for folks to see this club perform and compete and all of that, if they can't make it to these venues.
Yeah, we sure hope we have a great crowd tonight. Our fans have been phenomenal. And the block party, their leadership has been terrific. They're doing everything they can to pack that north end of the bleachers every night, and they're making a difference. I don't think they've been as good in a long time as they have been this year with their creativity and their effort and their noise that they've made down there. And I just hope that the loss to Maryland won't deter anybody from coming back. And when you got Nebraska, and I told our players this last night, Corey, as we were getting ready to leave. I said, how many home matches do you guys have left this season? I said, we got a lot of veteran players who are going to play their last season here at Purdue. 5 matches remain.
Yeah, you hit the road quite a bit.
5 matches remain, and you just hope that they're going to get as much out of it as possible. And the same thing goes for our fans. Yeah. 5 home matches is all we have left with this team. This not necessarily young, but certainly a little green under the gill, but playing their hearts out, for the old gold and black. And so I'm proud of them. I mean, I tell them that. Sometimes the old ball coach can be critical, and I've tried not to be with this group to the best of my ability. But I've told them over and over again how proud I am of what they have accomplished. But our success will be determined what we do. Yeah. And our success is going to be dictated not by Eva Hudson, okay, not by the young players on this team, okay, but by those 7 seniors that we have on our roster, 7, not including Meg Renner, who's a redshirt. That's who's going to decide it for us, okay? Maddie Chin, Emma Ellis, Maddie Cook, the 2 transfers, Skimmerhorn. I mean, those are the people, Ava Torrance, those are the people that are going to really dictate where we go, and that's where it should be. It should be laid in their lap.
Should be.
They've been through the wars, okay? So let's see what they can do to lead this team to a great season.
Good luck tonight against the Cornhuskers.
Thank you, Corey. Boiler up.
Boiler up.